Hail the father of dragons! Naruto buried his head in one hand and fought down a sigh as he grasped a goblet in the other with intent. Say that one more time and I will harm you, Oberyn. Nonsense, the young prince thumped him on the back. If anyone deserves praise after that display, it's you. He raised his own goblet high. To driving the Greyjoys back into the sea, he nursed a scowl in his wine. Not all of them. Ah, but you have that one watched by the hound, no? The Dornishman kicked one foot upon on the table with a laugh. I doubt he'll be making trouble for us any time soon. He wouldn't, not after the deal they'd made. On the contrary, he'd proven himself most cooperative. Downright useful, really occasional witty barb aside. Therein lie the problem. Reluctantly, Naruto raised his arm, reached out, and clanked his cup against Oberyn's own. He would find no salvation in wine tonight, much as he might wish to. They'd already thrown a massive feast to celebrate their victory at Lannisport, followed soon thereafter by a smaller, more private affair with those who were in the know. That had been, what, hours ago? He wasn't sure. Wine had a way of muddling one's thoughts, and he'd drunk more than his fair share tonight. Not enough to make himself drunk, he didn't think it was possible at this point, but just enough to lend his thoughts a pleasant afterglow, a distant haze that kept him from perseverating on more menial matters. Tywin father hadn't bothered to keep up with their drinking games for long and departed soon thereafter once it became clear they'd be at this all night. Tyrion had tried to stay up with them as best he could, bless his little heart, but at the end of the day he was just a boy. He'd folded hours ago and Mother had carried him back to bed, leaving the two of them alone. Oberyn hadn't stopped teasing him since, naturally. What troubles you? Choosing a different avenue of attack, was he? Clever of him. HRRMPH. He growled and made to drink, only to realize his goblet was empty. He remedied that and fixed Ilya's brother with a stern glare. What makes you say that? Oberyn tutted. You have the look of a doomed man about you, Lannister. I know it well. Come now, it's just the two of us here. The ladies have long since retired for the night. You can tell me. He very much doubted Cersei had gone to bed just yet. He'd last seen her whispering something Lyanna's ear, something that left the Stark girl's face terribly red. Ilya was clearly a bad influence on her, to say nothing of Nymeria. He didn't want to imagine what the four of them might get up to while he was in his cups, so he chose not to. I'm overwhelmed, he admitted it to him freely, frankly even. There, I said it. Happy now? The Martell laid his chin to rest upon one hand. How so? Plans for the coming battle? A blonde brow rose. You know it's not that. Ah, Oberyn's smile became a touch sharper, a tad more protective. I take it Ilya made her move, then. My dear sister was never one to back down from a challenge. Now it was his turn to flush for an altogether different reason. You could say that, but then again, Lyanna's very much the same. Oberyn caught the implicit meaning therein and boomed a laugh. Nathaniel, you sly dog, however did you pull that off? I didn't. He masked a rueful laugh and more wine. They made a deal while I was asleep. I see. Ilya's brother did the courtesy of pouring him more wine, then some for himself before returning to his seat. Rather, I wish I did. Mysterious are the ways of women. Naruto glowered into his wine. I'll drink to that. As you should. Oberyn guffawed openly and downed another flagon for himself. You treat them well, I'll admit. My sister has nothing but praise for you as of late. He did his level best to be a good lover to them, really, he did. Ah, but that still left the matter Cersei. Cersei. There could be no more running from her, he supposed. He could hardly admit his issues and conflicting feelings. To Oberyn on that front for fear of facing his confusion, or worst, his scorn. There were some things even the Dornish didn't do. No, this was a matter he must address on his own, come what may. Time to face the music there, one way or another. If only he knew how. Wait, there was someone he could speak to about this. In hindsight, he should have known better. It wouldn't be that easy. I fail to see the problem here, Nathaniel. Yup, really should have known better. Rayla Naruto, she sang back, using his tried-and true name. We Targaryens have wed brother and sister together for years. It is our way. Why ever did you think I would object? Tonight's dream had become a pleasant jaunt on the beaches of Dragonstone, their bare feet warmed by the waves. Together they walked hand in hand, simply basking in one another's presence. Or so he had been until she turned his argument on its head. She'd a tendency to do that, didn't she? I'm not a Targaryen, he pointed out. Who can say? She shrugged the cylinder expanse of a shoulder. The Conqueror's bloodline goes back further than any of us could hope to trace, and he was known to travel to the west a great deal. Smiling softly, she hid her lips behind one hand, doing nothing at all to contain her laughter. Regardless, I don't take issue with the matter of you having a mistress. Pulling ahead of him, she hummed and kicked at the surf, laughing but a little as it tickled her toes. Your heart is too big. I could never hope to hold it alone. Still my sister. Rayla glanced back at him, violet eyes twinkling in the low light. And did not a great many clans of yours intermarry for generations back in your village, as you yourself told me? Dang. She had him there? Yes, well, if I did do that with Cersei, she wouldn't exactly be my first. Rayla's gaze sharpened ever so slightly. Is that so? He told her the truth. How could he not? She'd been nothing if not honest with him. If nothing else, he owed her the same courtesy. By the end, her face was red, not at all from anger. A Stark and a Martell, but you are greedy, aren't you? He mentioned Nymeria. Rayla's brow shot into her hair. Well, competition breeds excellence, doesn't it? You're all right with this? I suppose I'll have to be. Her violet eyes sparked suddenly as a thought occurred to her. Unless you've been betting them for quite some time and leading this old woman on. Old, her, not anymore, not after he'd rejuvenated her. You barely look 20, you know. She whipped around and pinched his cheek. Naruto Uzumaki, tell me the truth this instant. When did you start sleeping with them? Her outburst made him smile. He rather liked this fiery side of her. Recent. He said the word freely, having nothing to hide. She tweaked his cheek. How recent? As in less than 3 months. Her met her gaze unbowed, unbent, unbroken. Literally the other day in Lyanna and Elia's case, and not by choice. Oh, a light flush touched Rayla's cheeks. I suppose they ambushed you, didn't they? He coughed into a fist, remembering just how terribly forward each of them had been, even Cersei with her most recent confession. And despite all this, you've not slept with your sister? No. She giggled, and for once it sounded almost girlish, further betraying her anxiety. You do realize you're tempting me, no? I've have a mind to make my escape, ride to Casterly Rock, and pin you to your bed for a week. His face went scarlet. You'd think he'd be used to blunt courtship by now. Rayla outstripped them all by a country mile. Left unsaid was the fact that any attempt on her part to flee the capital would fail without his aid. He gave her hand a squeeze. Please don't try just yet. Why ever not? She was testing him. Despite her teasing tone, he could sense the burning question therein. I dare say you'd slaughter anyone in your way. I would, he replied, steadfast in his conviction. And every army sent after you, until nothing was left. I'd also be seen as the villain, and the whole world would turn against me. Her lovely face drained of all color. She'd meant it as a jest. You're telling the truth, aren't you? Yes. He was weaker in this incarnation, sure, but only just. He could still outrun horses, crush stone in his bare hands, and command the very elements. And that was without Sage Mode, to say nothing of his shadow clones and more recent creations. Factor in 3 dragons, and he had the potential to burn not just Westeros, but Essos and the lands beyond. Well, she fanned her face with a hand. Now you're getting me all hot and bothered. It's only the fair I do the same to you, no? Now wait just a second too late, and she was much too close for him to escape in time. She laid a hand on his shoulder and leaned in. Her lisp brushed the outer lobe of his right ear as she spoke, delivering the softest kiss with every other word. I yearn for you, beloved. I wish to touch you, not in dreams, but in the waking world, to feel your lips on mine, your hands on my waist, to cry your very name to the heavens for all to hear. He shivered but a little as she pulled away. Was it possible to get riled up from words alone? If so, she'd succeeded. The fact that he restrained himself seemed to impress her greatly, because she dared to kiss his cheek. Such a gentleman. I maintain what I said, however. Straightening up, she lifted her chin ever so slightly, violet eyes catching the light of the setting sun to set her gaze ablaze. Those silly girls may have your body, but I had your mind and heart first. As such, I shall be your unforgettable first. He couldn't resist the chance to tease her. Even though you technically aren't? Even so, she huffed and stomped on his foot as they walked. Comfortable silence reigned between for a time. Alas, it simply couldn't last for long. The good things seldom did. There is something else you should know, Rayla said suddenly, almost apropos of nothing, fingers tightening around his. Ares has been looking for dragon eggs. Naruto nearly missed a step and fell face first into the sand. Thankfully, his reflexes were just as sharp in a dream as they were in the real world, and he caught himself immediately. His blood, however, ran cold. Does he know? No, the youthful queen shook her head. He suspects nothing. If he had even the slightest inclination, he would have sacked Casterly Rock by now. Varys assured me has no such plans, although, he didn't like that tone. Although, he may be using the Greyjoys to ascertain your capabilities, she continued, brow furrowed in thought as she pondered the matter further. You won't be able to hide them much longer, my love. Her hip brushed his, causing him to sigh but a little. They are growing, yes. Kurama is, and quickly, but he's still not large enough just yet. Shukaku hatched more recently, to say nothing of Matatabi. Her eyes lit up. You have 3 dragons now? Did I forget to mention that? Had he only mentioned Cersei to her? Yes, she gave him a firm shake, drawing another laugh from him. You most assuredly did. Calming herself, she raised their intertwined hands and gave his knuckles a quick kiss. How did that happen? He explained in blunt if brisk terms. Do you believe there will be more? 6 more at least. Ah, your tailed friends, I take it? He nodded. Rayla shivered. Goods be good. Mastering herself quickly, she shook her head. They may be small now, but I expect that won't remain the case for long. Dragons grow quickly in the company of others. Now it was his turn to quirk a brow her way, bemused. Been reading books on dragon lore, have you? She sniffed. Reading is all I can do these days, that and exercise. Foot, meet mouth. I didn't mean to imply quite all right. She leaned into him mid-step, taking the chance to pull him close for what it was. I know you didn't mean anything untoward by it. Absence makes the heart grow fonder in any case. It will make our grand reunion all the more sweeter ... provided my so-called husband doesn't catch wind of us. He scoffed. Ares isn't that smart. The man's insane. Rayla pinched his arm, drawing a grimace from him as she spoke. He may be so now, but he was brilliant once and has little left to lose at present. You do well not to underestimate him. Fair point. Mad and diseased he may be, but that made him all the more unpredictable. He'd already sixed the Greyjays on them, or turned a blind eye to their raids at the very least. Who knew what else the madman might be capable of when provoked or pressed? He didn't want to find out. I would ask that you keep an eye on that Greyjay, Rayla warned him. His kind have ever proven untrustworthy. And you keep an eye on Ares. She tutted and caressed his cheek. Let me worry about that doddering dragon. I am nothing if not subtle. Targaryens were most assuredly not subtle. Keep a knife on you at all times and keep Jaime close. He'll keep you safe. I will endeavor to do so. She released his hand. I suppose it's time to go then. It was. He wished it wasn't, but he couldn't keep sleeping like this. Her voice caught him as he turned to go. Nathaniel, wait. He paused. In an instant she was upon him, hands cupping his cheeks, forehead pressed to his. Her nose brushed his, lips close enough to kiss, yet she didn't lean in. You've given me advice all this time, helped me, protected me even when you had no reason to. Her voice was low, fervent, yet strangely sad, tugging at his heartstrings. Allow me to impart some small wisdom unto you in return. Be honest with your sister as I am honest with you. Look into her eyes, ask her every question you can consider and see what comes. If she loves you, then she does. If this is what a fledgling crush, compelled by lust, then that is a different matter. Speak with her, be true with her, or you shall both live to regret it until the end of your days. Do not simply settle as I did. Else you shall live a life of misery. She tapped him between the eyes. Now wake up. He did so, but only for a moment. Cersei opened her eyes with a start. All around her she found not the comforting confines of her room, but something else entirely. A forest. Why was she in a forest? It was a lovely one, make no mistake, full of lush, lively greenery wherever she looked, but it wasn't home. Was she dreaming? She didn't remember ever seeing a place like this. What is this place? That's something of a long story. Cersei pivoted, startled as a voice called out behind her. Nathaniel! For it was her brother, undoubtedly so, but he looked different somehow, stronger, taller than before. His eyes were brighter, his body almost seemed to glow with golden light lit from within. He'd never looked quite so handsome as he did in this moment. Those odd marks on his cheeks, too. What was this? What manner of witchcraft could this be? He'd called this a dream, yet she was aware of it, so that must mean. Oh, right then. If this was a dream, she didn't want to wake up. Not now, not never ever. Sit, he instructed her, indicating a nearby patch of grass. We need to talk. Her heart promptly leaped into her throat and took up residence there, and yet sweeter words had never been spoken. Cersei sat instantly. Rhaegar Targaryen considered his options. This was a dangerous game he was playing, one with great risk. And yet the greatest risks often brought the greatest rewards, did they not? If father would not take action and help him find a suitable bride, then he would take matters into his own hands. Steeling himself, he cracked the reins and spurred his steed forward. But as to where he rode, well, who can say, you're not my brother? Of course, that was the part she'd focus on. In body, yes, he hazarded with a sigh, but not my soul. Naruto exhaled heavily, closed his eyes, and pinched the bridge of his nose in an attempt to rally his thoughts. All around them, the dream flowed onward once more. the forest thriving with vibrant life, as the last lingering bits of memory faded away like so much morning mist. Cersei seemed a bit flummoxed by his response. He didn't blame her for her silence. After all, he hadn't simply told her his life story, he'd shown it. Every year, month, day, hour, minute, and second, he could remember, each leading up to this moment. He's not simply shown her his past, but linked her to it, her and his mind alike. She'd practically lived out his first life alongside him, then most of his second life besides. If it sounded like overkill, it was. But he had no choice. It was the only way to make the stubborn lioness truly understand where he was coming from, and in understanding, see. Unlike Rayla, who was willing to believe him solely based on what he showed her, Cersei was far more suspicious, naturally inclined toward paranoia. So he'd shown her everything. Yes, everything, meaning she now knew about Rayla. Cersei pouted, hands folded in her lap where she sat. At least you haven't somehow slept with the Dragon Queen before me. Naruto blinked, briefly befuddled. How had she? Right, she was still in his head, wasn't she? Best remedy that. With a quick pulse of chakra, he cut the link between them, noticing her wince but allowed the dream to persist unabated. Cersei pouted just a little at that. Why did you stop? I rather like being able to hear your thoughts. You know why, he chided her sternly. I'm only used to having one person in my head. The fox, yes. Her smile was brilliant. Will I be able to understand Kurama now? He shrugged, not quite certain. What he'd done was unprecedented. He'd never really let anyone inside his head before, not willingly at least. It might allow her to comprehend what the Biju dragons were saying, rather than their excited and often angry squawks and chirpy noises. But that was a matter for another time. They still needed to address the Hyuga girl. Cersei said suddenly apropos of nothing, waving a hand, unable to recall her name, still swimming in the memories he'd given her. She loved you, I think. Hyuga? Oh, right. There had been someone always staring at him, hadn't there? Many of his memories were worn down, some of them even half forgotten due to his second life. The human mind could only remember so much. But he vaguely recalled a girl with pale eyes who barely talked to him. He scoffed, quietly incredulous. Who, Hinata? Nah, no way. She was afraid of me, always getting red and fainting whenever I was around. Always looking away from me, too. Is that what you believe? Naturally. He second-guessed himself even as he said it. What makes you think I'm wrong? Cersei smiled sadly. A lady always knows, and I know the look of unrequited love. All right, maybe she had a point there, but Hinata. With him, no way, he shook his head. I would have noticed if she had feelings for me. Her brow furrowed. You cannot be this dense. You've slept with 3 women. How did you not realize this? Hey now. He held up a hand to ward off her rant. I like to think I've gotten a little smarter since my first life, you know. Clearly not enough if you didn't realize you were breaking the lovesick girl's heart. Love. Had Hinata ever said something like that? No way. He would have remembered. He pressed a finger to his forehead, trying to recall something. Anything. Eventually, a murky memory surfaced, worn and faded by time and years gone by. I love you, she'd said those words to him, right before pain drove an iron stake through her heart. He'd gone berserk shortly afterward, given into Kurama, nearly gone insane. How could he have forgotten something like that? Hadn't he held her hand after Neji died, too? How did I forget? Stop, it was the past. Focusing on it would only bring him pain. Hells, it was causing him pain now. Enough! He slashed a hand through the air. I'm being honest with you, the least you can do is spare me your games. Games? He expected scornful laughter, what he often got from her when they were children. Instead, she shook her head and sighed. Nathaniel, I'm telling you this, dear brother, because I had to practically beat you about the head to get my feelings across. Clearly that girl missed out. I have no such intentions. Right then. Moment of truth. And those intentions are? She blinked and scooted a little closer to him. I had thought that rather obvious. He didn't budge, even when she laid her head against his shoulder. If mother and father find out, they'll be livid. Cersei looked up at him, blinking through her long lashes. Not if you become king. He rolled his eyes. So everyone seems to be telling me as of late. Think about it. She took a hold of his hand, fingers stroking his. When you depose Ares and hold the crown, your word will be truth and law. You have dragons. All of Westeros will bow to you. You'll be able to do as you please when you please with whom you please. Glancing down at their intertwined hands, he struggled to decipher the tangled knot of emotions in his chest. But I don't have a crown right now. You will. She nuzzled his shoulder, breath hitching a little. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but soon. You were meant for this. It was his decision then. She was placing the onus of choice upon him, as if that made things any easier. Do you love me? The question seemed to puzzle Cersei. She pursed her lips and said as much. What kind of question is that? Of course I do. No, he took her by the shoulders and her at arm's length. Do you love me? Not as a brother, but as a young man? Cersei went very still. When she finally spoke, her voice was terribly quiet. Are you rejecting me? She looked so small, so hurt, so sad, he stood his ground. I'm not doing anything, and I won't until you give me your answer. She stared sullenly into her lap, and exasperated, he changed tact. How about this, then? Is it love or lust that you feel for me? That got a better reaction out of her. I want to be with you. But why? He pressed. Why? She smacked his arm, indignant. Why shouldn't I? Must I spell it out for you? Because you're everything I want to be, because you have power. Because you make the world bend to your will and to the hells with the consequences. Because I've come to adore you and regret my mistakes. Because I want to be with you and have your... Her throat closed, choking her words off in a sob, but he could guess the rest. Cersei wanted children. His children, with him, that complicated things. It wasn't just mindless lust then. She had moon tea for that. But the idea of bringing a life into this world, or raising a little one, well, that didn't stem from lust at all. Why was love so complicated? I think this is love. Cersei palmed her face, demanding his attention as she muttered to herself. Is this what that Hyuga girl felt? Poor thing, if only she'd been bolder. She peeked out between her fingers, giving him a sheepish little smile. Then again, if she had, you likely wouldn't be here. Her loss, I suppose. The thought alarmed him. He liked this life, had grown quite fond of it, really. He had friends here, family. He was building towards something grand, an achievement to which his old life couldn't possibly compare. Hawkage of a village, you say? Pa, what was that compared to the king of a continent? Because that would be his fate if things continued down this path, loath though he was to admit it. Sooner or later, Ares would trip up, do something stupid, and start a war against them. Once they had righteous cause. Do you love me? Clever girl, distracting him and turning his own question against him. He considered his not-sister for a long moment. You're not as annoying as you once were. Nathaniel. Sorry. It really was fun to tease her. In all honesty, I find you frustrating, demanding, and a bit of a bossy bitch at times. Her shoulders slumped and her head with them. It looked like she might burst into tears. But... Cersei whipped around so fast that, were this the waking world, she surely would have given herself whiplash, perhaps even broken her neck outright. I think I want you after all, he admitted, watching her eyes widen ever so slightly. The current you, the honest you, I find myself thinking about you even when I know I shouldn't. Even now there's a part of me that wants to pin you to a bed and ruin you, because you look so damn delectable. Oops. Been a while since he was that crass. Cersei shivered a little, and judging by the red in her face, it wasn't at all in a bad way. The future you don't have to plot and scheme and backstab to get my attention. Reaching out, he took her free hand in his. Just talk to me, all right? We're family. I'll listen to you. If you have complaints, voice them. Don't go blowing a gasket because you think I'm ignoring you. I'm not. She blinked. Gasket. Term from my world, you wouldn't get it. She pressed her forehead to his, sniffling but a little. Fool of a brother. You ran away from me before. Who's to say you won't again? I promise I won't, not without talking to you. Here. He waved a hand and made the dream twist, banishing the lively forest and replacing it with something altogether far more familiar. His bedroom. Cersei saw the bed at once and stiffened, eyes flicking to his, then to the bed, back to him now. We'll start slow, he reassured her. That's why we're having this conversation here where we can't cause any trouble. Consider this a test run. She blinked, baffled by the terminology. What does that mean? You're using all these strange terms. Consider it practice. Oh, her eyes widened and her face went red as the full meaning of his words sank into her like a ship's anchor. Oh, then that means... There will be rules, he warned her quickly. Not guidelines, actual rules, do you understand? Her head bobbed. We'll need to act normal in public, he continued. We can't give anything away. Lyanna and the ladies already know how I feel. And I trust them to silence, not the rest of Casterly Rock. Am I clear? Another nod, quicker than the last. I may be able to manage a temporary disguise for us if you're that determined to go out in public. How so? He casually used a transformation jutsu before her, assuming the likeness of an old friend before changing back. Cersei made a curious noise trapped somewhere between a giddy giggle and a triumphant cry. I'd like that. I can be patient. I'll be good. Naruto sighed. The things we do for the ones we love. I know I'm asking a lot of you, yet this is the price. If we're caught right now, we'll risk destabilizing everything. Not just the alliance we've built, but our cause. In the future, things will be different. People can wag their tongues and gossip all they like once we're in power. Until then she was smiling now, almost girlishly. We, he huffed. Don't read into it. You said we. Naruto stood and drew his sassy sister up with him, unwilling to give her any more rope to hang him with. Here at last, Cersei looked toward the bed and hesitated. It hurts the first time, doesn't it? This is a dream. It won't if you don't let it. Nothing that happens here alters reality. Not unless he allowed it, of course, but he'd not say that. You're not that powerful, then? Oi, sister of mine. Still, she dithered. Patiently, he took Cersei by the hand and led her back to the bed. She allowed it, looking very much like an anxious lioness as she sat beside him, ready to maul him if he spooked her. This was the real her, none of that brilliant bravado or false confidence she put on in public. Alone, with no fear of prying eyes or discovery. Not poisoned by paranoia or fear or simply too much wine. Just the two of them, she could be herself. He liked it. Cersei? Her head snapped up, but she didn't speak. She absolutely didn't dare, if only for fear of saying something untowards and upsetting him or worse, turning him against her. Not that she could. He touched one hand to her cheek, laid the other against her face, and gently, carefully steered her lips to his. Their kiss was different than last time. Here in the dream, he was the one to initiate it, willingly letting his lips linger over hers, drawing a little noise from her, only to draw away. She whined unhappily, but he didn't give her the chance to protest and instead began lavishing kisses upon her face, then her chin, followed by her neck. Soon enough, that whine became a gasp, a groan, a moan now as he delved lower still, exciting her further. He'd only just reached her breasts when she came alive in his arms. She all but launched herself into his lap, practically tackling him in her haste to get at him. She one leg around his waist as her fingers bit into his back, and suddenly it was his turn to gasp in surprise. All right, maybe he'd teased her a little too much. Using her own body as leverage, she dragged his face back to hers, kissing him hungrily, which he reciprocated with equal desire. It felt good to cut loose, to stop holding back, to hear her gasping his name, begging him to touch her, to get her out of this dress already before she tore it clean off. His fingers found the lacing of her dress first and undid it nimbly, leaving it to pool down her waist, baring her breasts to him. Immodesty didn't stop her. She hiked up her skirts with one hand and fumbled for his trousers with the other. Somewhere between the ripping of fabric, she wound up atop him, all but sitting into his lap. For all her fervor, she was inexperienced in this. He wasn't, not anymore. The outcome was never in question. They both went mad, carnal bliss. Cersei awoke come the dawn untouched, feeling more rest than she had in years. Also somewhat sore, mildly concerning that. It was as if he had been here and her very bad ravaging her. Yet he was nowhere to be seen. She could still feel his lingering touches, his kisses, driving her mad, yet physically she was quite untouched. Mentally, however, it was bliss. Every touch, every caress, everything really. Cersei reveled in it, glad to be awake for perhaps the first time in her life. She had been hesitant at first, anxiety getting the better of her over-desire. But in time, fear had given way to delight, and pain had become pleasure. So many positions, so much time. While their bodies slept, their minds were as one, their very spirits intertwined. They had explored every inch of another in their dream, leaving the waking world none the wiser. Even now she recalled the sheer carnal depravity of it all, sitting in his lap, straddling him, crying out in bliss as he took from behind. It was perhaps a pale imitation to doing the deed in the waking world, but she could see the necessity of it. This would slake her thirst for the time being. After all, if they were discovered before he became king, there would be a scandal. Even when he did take the Iron Throne, she'd make certain he did. Tongues would wag at the idea of him bedding your sister, to say nothing of his other paramours. Perhaps this was selfish of her. Perhaps she should let him go. Perhaps she was the one in the wrong here. But she had already given up so much. She had given him one last chance to walk away, and he had refused. She couldn't deny herself here anymore. Jaime was lucky. He got to swear his oath of chastity. Forget all about any desires. She was not so fortunate. While he was off writing about being a knight, she preferred far more carnal pleasures. She enjoyed Nathaniel's company, but was that lust? Or was it love? In the end, she didn't have an answer. Time would tell. She smiled despite herself, already longing for the next dream. A slow, sleepy smile tugged at her full lips. She absolutely lounged in bed all day. And time marched every onward. The Greyjoy raiders never stood a chance. From Cornwall to Crakehall, they were set upon, one and all. Within the span of a few months, they were driven from the west and cast back into the sea. And once they were, ships sailed toward the Iron Islands. It would be a massacre, but for whom? The Iron Islands beckoned. Naruto took no pleasure in the assault that was to come, if only because he knew there would be casualties. Men would lose their lives, good men, honorable men from both the north and the west alike. There would be deaths. There could be no avoiding that. For all his skills and healing, he couldn't be everywhere at once. He could come close, sure, but he wasn't perfect. Even he couldn't cure death. Worse, the Ironborn knew they were coming. No avoiding that either, given that they'd all but thrown them back into the sea. They had to know what was coming for them by now. Even a blind man could see the writing on the wall. They'd likely fortified themselves and dug in for a costly siege. Alas, the dragons weren't ready for combat. Well, Kurama might manage a flight with him through sheer dog determination at nothing else. But Shukaku and Matatabi were still woefully small given how recently they'd hatched. He gave them chakra every day to speed along their growth, but there could be no denying the former fox was growing the quickest out of all of them. Perhaps it had something to do with their bond. Or maybe dragons just thrived during war. Who could say? Regardless, they couldn't afford to reveal them just yet, not with so much on the line. He soon found himself faced with another surprise. Tywin was staying behind. "You want me to lead the assault?" "I do." His father remained implacable as ever where he stood behind the table, much to his chagrin. "You've proven yourself in battle and the men trust you. This will be your first military command without my guidance. I trust you won't disappoint me." This was to be their final strategy session before he set out then. Sure, Griot, no pursuer, gulp. "Who knows?" The elder Lannister loosed a harrowing chuckle. "If you acquit yourself well, the bards may have a new song or two by the end of this campaign." "No, thank you. The Rains of Castamere was quite enough. They didn't need a new song. The Greyjoys will know you're coming." His lord father laid a hand against the map, indicating a series of marked positions, forcing him to follow his gaze. "I expect they will have fortified Old Wick and Pike against us by now. It will be a hard-fought battle on land and sea alike, but we have gained new allies of our own." He traced a stern finger past the Iron Islands, tracing the edge of the bay itself. "The Greyjoys are alone with few allies. Moreover, they've irked both the Harlaws and the Mallisters with their incessant warmongering. I expect both will be glad to be rid of them, given the right leverage." A blonde brow quirked. "Leverage you've already applied, no doubt?" "I may have written a few letters." The other rose to join it. "What did you offer them?" Tywin stared stoically. "Victory, what else?" Damn, Dad was scary. "Great, no pressure." He ran a hand through his hair, considered the pieces arrayed before them with a sigh. "How many men are we throwing at this?" Tywin tutted. "Why ask questions you already know the answer to?" "That many, huh? All right. Let's begin. Ironman's Bay is not so impenetrable as the Ironborn would have us believe. It is vulnerable here and here." Tywin indicated several points of interest, each of which he committed to memory. "A blockade would be wise, but we haven't the numbers for it. Moreover, the Ironborn are reavers and raiders. Their sailors outstrip ours. You must strike fast and strike hard, take them by surprise before they can react. I suspect that wily Greyjoy of yours may have a few ideas." Just thinking about Euron left a sour taste in his mouth. Slimy Kraken had made himself useful. Too useful, some might say. Euron mentioned a few, he admitted ruefully, tracing a finger over the map. "None of which I like." "Tell me of them, then." He did, shortly and succinctly, feeling filthy afterward. Tywin didn't judge him for it. "I see. I'd ask you to keep it clean, but clean ways don't win wars." Grimacing, he took a goblet from the table and drank. Damn, it was only water. He would have preferred wine. "On that we both agree?" "Good, you're learning. Honor was all well and good to a point, until it got you killed. The Starks had yet to learn that lesson. Perhaps they would in the future. Lord Rickard had proven himself, flexible when it came to protecting Lyanna. With a bit of luck, his bannermen would learn to bend as well, preferably before they broke. "Tell me," his lord father asked suddenly apropos of nothing, "can that faceless woman of yours swim?" This time he couldn't quite hide his smile. "Nymeria can, and very well at that." "Can she now? She couldn't before. When did she learn?" Heat rose to his cheeks. "I taught her." Sex on the beach was great and all, but going at it in the water had a pleasure all its own. Tywin noticed, sharp-eyed as ever. "HRRM, just be careful you don't get a bastard of her just yet. Although, perhaps the Lannisters could do with a brand family." Naruto nearly choked on his wine and had to thump his chest just to swallow. "Excuse me." "Calm yourself," Tywin chided him. "We've more work to do before the night is done. Your voyage begins tomorrow, or have you forgotten?" "Joy of joys." The Lord of Casterly Rock tapped a finger down on the map once more, indicating the Greyjoy stronghold therein. Quellin is by far the wisest of the Greyjoys, strong and fast at that. He was peaceful and cautious and wanted neutrality. A pity what's become of him, really. How so? Tywin fixed him with a stern look. There was a time when he wished to reform the Ironborn to make them a proper Westerosi house. He was in talks with me of it, and I entertained his offers. The resources of the Iron Islands would have been a great boon to us. Cersei might have been shipped off there. Father had never mentioned it. What happened? He suspected the answer, but his father merely confirmed it. Aerys. After a moment's pause, he shrugged. Or perhaps Quellin has been usurped by one of his sons. He had a great many of them. Had implied he no longer did. Dare I ask what became of them? Euron joined us. Tywin counted off his fingers while he spoke, downing one after the other. Aeron was slain during the Battle of Lannisport. Only Victarion and Balon remain, and I suspect it is the latter who leads the Greyjoys now. Slay them, and the Kraken will flounder. Naturally, there's the risk that this is Quellin's doing, and he's leading us into a trap. True. Forewarned is forearmed, after all. He didn't like the idea of wiping out a house and tearing down their towers, but there could be no denying the Greyjoys started this. Whether they were pushed, goaded, threatened, or coerced, it mattered not. They were enemies. The blood of the West ran gold, and gold burned red hot. He'd drown them in it. Lannisters paid their debts, one way or another. Rhaegar kept writing. His destination was in sight. Silently he prayed that this would go well. Something stirred in the depths of the ocean. Old and ancient. It awoke. Euron froze in the act of sharpening his sword, the steel slipping from his grasp as a vision took him in its teeth. Keen senses sharpened by magic whispered in his ear, a dire warning of what was to come. A wry smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, carefully concealed behind one hand. Opening his eyes, he stooped low, retrieved his weapon, and began anew. Now isn't this interesting? The dawn broke, and with it came bittersweet farewells. Must you go? Naruto stood on the docks and peered down at Tyrion, fighting back a wistful smile at his little brother's pleading. You know I can't stay. Ah, but he was a child, and children, as he knew, weren't so easily dissuaded. Nymeria's going with you, said faceless woman was already aboard the ship, awaiting him, no doubt rolling her eyes. Nymeria can fight. Tyrion was positively distraught to see him go, but he couldn't possibly go with them. Neither could Cersei. She understood that. Tyrion didn't. He taking the Hound? Because the Hound can also fight. Better than most at that. Elia and Lyanna also need to stay here as well. No one knows they're at Casterly Rock. He knelt down and embraced his brother before he could think to protest again, holding him close to whisper into his ear. I'm leaving the dragons in your care while I'm away. Can I trust you with them? Tyrion's gaze lit up. I'll keep them safe, you have my word. He rose to his feet, idly tussling his hair as he went. I know you will. He'd left countermeasures behind in the even that someone tried anything, but anything that boosted poor Tyrion's confidence was a boon in his eyes. After all this time, he'd become many things, but foolish wasn't one of them. Aerys, if he was truly behind this, might try to strike at Casterly Rock while he was away. He'd talked long and loudly with Kurama and Shukaku as to how they might prevent this, with Matatabi offering her own input. If a dragon came calling unlikely, he'd be in for a nasty surprise. Elia stepped to him, hands clasped before her, claiming his attention. You will return, I trust, he quirked a brow at her. You doubt me? She took his hands in hers and squeezed. Never. Cersei sidled up next to him and kissed his cheek briskly as a sibling might. Be safe, little brother. I could say the same of you. Keep up those sword lessons of yours while I'm gone. Her smile was radiant. Perhaps I'll be able to beat you by the time you return. He very much doubted that, but there was no harm in humoring her. Last but by no means least, Lyanna stepped up. He saw the spark in her eye and knew at once that she was up to something, if not necessarily what. He soon had his answer as she took him by the face and kissed him fiercely, deeply, passionately, nearly causing him to stumble off the dock entirely and fall into the water before he caught himself. Many a Northman and Westerlander cheered from the ships. His face went red and turned redder still as Lyanna's lips brushed the outer lobe of his ear. Come back to me, she whispered. I'll see you in your dreams. Wait, how did she know about Joanna Lannister was next, taking him briefly into her arms to hold him tight. Be safe, my darling boy, he sighed against her. Mother, I'm not a child anymore. Even so, stop coddling him. Tywin was much too stern for such overt displays of affection, but he did clasp a hand to his shoulder. Save travels. Joanna elbowed him viciously in the ribs until he capitulated and gave him a firm embrace. From someone like Tywin, it meant the world. Of course, that meant Tyrion had to latch onto his leg, which gave Cersei an excuse to wriggle into his side. He basked in the warm, familial moment, wishing it would never end. All too soon it did. "Don't worry, my lords and ladies," Euron swaggered up, arms swinging at his sides. "He'll be just fine. I'll make sure of that." Everyone glared at him, not that he could blame them. The Greyjoy had proven himself trustworthy thus far, warringly so. There had been no tricks, no traps, neither twists nor turns. He'd been a veritable paragon of loyalty and virtue, everything a Greyjoy wasn't. And now here he was, promising to protect him. Just what was he up to? Cersei hissed. "If you harm a hair on his head." Euron chortled softly. Perish the thought. There was nothing more to be said. With one last lingering look and a goodbye, he grabbed Euron by the arm and dragged him away. From there they boarded the flagship, and in a matter of moments they were off. The invasion began, movement, ships approaching. It sensed them in the deep. Something called to it. Hunger, prey, food. They made good time toward the Iron Islands. Better than he'd ever dared to dream possible. With the wind in their sails and the sea calm, it promised to be a peaceful voyage. Rather concerning, that. In his experience, there was no such thing as a peaceful voyage, impending invasion or otherwise. The Northmen wouldn't be of much use on the water. Most soldiers weren't. All the more reason to land and disembark quickly. Armor meant naught against the sea. Their journey needed to be a brisk one, quick and efficient to strike at the very heart of the enemy before all was lost. A day passed in quiet solitude, with naught but the salt of the sea for company. A second swept by in relative peace as well as the spied a pod of dolphins. By the time a third came, he found himself growing restless. Even with their vessel at the head of the fleet and no cover on the open ocean, he still expected an ambush. Any moment now they'd see sails on the horizon, or some recently tamed dragon sage knew there were enough eggs about would come swooping down from the clouds to burn their fleet to ashes. When no such threats appeared and no madness manifested, he only found himself further on edge. Euron didn't help matters any with that smug smile of his and the constant assurances of all will be well. Easy for him to say. He couldn't tell whether he was being his usual smarmy self or if he genuinely believed that something shook the ship, causing him to lurch forward. What in the world? Impossible. There were no reefs this far out, and the Iron Islands, though visible on the horizon, were still well away. So what then? Euron hummed thoughtfully, carefully bracing himself against the mast. "You may want to look down." A pang of dread seized him. Reluctantly, he did as the man suggested and gazed into the briny deep. Movement danced in the depths below, too fast for him to properly see. He thought he saw a shadow, a rippling of water that had nothing at all to do with oars. He blinked, scrubbing at his eyes with both hands. Between one blink and another, the giant eye of a creature stared back through the water. Naruto recoiled, recovered now as recognition dawned. Wait, he knew that one of the sailors saw it, shrieked, and stabbed down with their spear. "Sea serpent, kill it," Naruto swore. "No, you idiot." Wait, too late the lance skittered off the beast's scaly brow. A low, sonorous noise shook the world. And that, as they say, was that. The water erupted. Twine had been right about one thing. What followed would make for a fine song indeed.